Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Mayor John Nearing, and it's really a pleasure to have you join us for this virtual State of the City. You know, certainly the year that we all anticipated at this time last year turned out a lot different. A year ago, on January 20th of 2020, the first U.S. COVID patient was admitted to Providence Hospital in Everett. And that started a 2020 marked by a worldwide pandemic, which, as you well know, created ripple effects on not just public health, but also on our economy, our businesses, family and individual financial situations, our social networks, and personal ways of adjusting and coping. Our way of life has dramatically changed. I'm proud of the way the city leaders and employees really stepped up and pivoted as needed and met the many challenges we faced to deliver high quality services and maintain all the essential services of your local city government. This past year, we know, has been so very difficult for many of our residents and our businesses. And we are committed to continuing to do whatever we can to help everyone get through this most difficult of times. We'll talk a lot more about COVID and our COVID response later on in this presentation. But right now, let's kind of dive into some other things. I want to start by taking a quick look at some stats here, population and some of the other things. We always like to start out by showing that. It gives you an idea of where we're at here in the city. And following that, we'll go ahead and move now and take a look at some of the other operations of city government, starting with finance. So Marysville operates under a 2-year budget, which I think we've talked about in the past. So currently that is a $396 million 2-year budget that was approved by the City Council towards the end of last year. This chart gives you a look at where the city's general fund money came from in 2020. As a public agency, our finance department is, of course, ever mindful of good financial stewardship. We work hard on that every single day and every single year. We recognize that these are your hard-earned tax dollars. We all pay them as well, myself and the City Council. And so we're proud to have earned 13 consecutive clean financial audits. And I want you to know that our general approach financially is conservative. And that's set us up well over the many years compared with other cities, and our financial situation is currently sound. Next, I want to take a look at some highlights by departments and by various programs. Here in Marysville, the majority of the city's general fund goes towards law, safety, and justice programs, and that's not unlike other local governments. It's very similar everywhere throughout the county and throughout the country, really. Targeted policing strategy continues to make a real dent in crime in our community. I know public safety is the top priority of our citizens and our businesses. I want you to know that our strategies are paying off. Overall crime levels are 21% below the 2019 rate, and as much as 48% below what we saw 6 years ago in 2014, when we really began to aggressively combat some of the crimes that were plaguing our community at that time. As of November 2020, the Marysville Police handled over 63,000 calls for service. That's a remarkable number and is a real testament to their dedication and work. In 2020, we also welcomed, as many of you probably heard, a new police chief, Eric Scarpin. And we also hired 9 new police officers, 2 new custody officers, a new code enforcement officer, and 1 new records unit specialist. So we continue to invest in our police department and in the public safety of this community. So several long-serving employees are retiring this month, creating additional vacancies. And so we're excited to hire a second evidence and property technician for our police department in 2021. And this year we'll also see a new assistant chief chosen for the department as Assistant Chief Jeff Goldman enters his retirement. So both those hiring processes are underway. We're excited about them. We're excited about the work done in our police department. If you see an officer out on the street, give them a thank you. They work really hard every single day to keep this community safe. It's not an easy time to be in police work, and I'm really proud of the work done by our department. Code enforcement is another area that comes underneath our police department. Works on a wide range of public nuisance issues. These include boarding up of vacant homes that can attract squatters, impounding vehicles parked in the right-of-way, and things of that nature. In 2020, this team was really busy, opened up 273 new cases and closed 270 cases. And now we move to our very popular K-9 unit, our K-9 officers, Copper and Steel, and their human partners had 166 cases in 2020. Of those, they joined 86 patrol cases where they successfully tracked suspects on 62% of them, a remarkable rate. This K-9 team was involved in 80 narcotics cases, where they recovered over 6 pounds of meth, over 4 pounds of heroin, almost 2 grams of cocaine, 197 fentanyl pills, 19 firearms, and almost $200,000 in illegally obtained cash. I think many of you have probably seen, maybe on our National Night Out or other times, gotten to witness copper and steel in action when our officers have shown that. And we really appreciate the community support for our K-9 program that's come throughout the years, and they do remarkable work. Another area of our police department that I'm particularly proud of, and I think it's been a real success story, this is our state-renowned embedded social worker team. This program started in 2018. It pairs a Marysville Police Department officer with a social worker. And these folks go out and outreach into the community to form relationships and help those that are addicted to various substances, drugs or other things. Also those dealing with mental health issues. And they offer them treatment or other social services that get at the root of the problem of what they're dealing with, to try and get them off the streets, get those things taken care of, get some temporary housing, get some job training, and an ability to reconnect with the life that maybe some of them once had, hopefully job opportunities and things like that. These are things that drive at the root of the problem that we need to help these people. Many of the people that we see wandering the streets do have an addiction problem or a mental health problem or both. And so Officer Buell and social worker Rochelle Long have been out with this team. They do a phenomenal job. They work really hard every single day to build relationships with these clients that they meet on the street. They'll go up into our jail and meet with people. So since this program started, there's some really amazing stats. They've completed 322 assessments. They've gotten 71 people in for a detox, 30 mental health evaluations. They've enrolled 160 people in inpatient treatment. And that's really critical. That's 160 people off our streets into a treatment program. 93 of those people have graduated. So we make no bones about it. Not everybody we get off the streets into treatment makes it all the way through. But think about how remarkable it is that 93 people that used to be out on our streets, in the woods, wherever, have graduated treatment program and are hopefully at some stage of a second crack at life. I could tell you personal stories of people that have sent me notes, have joined my virtual coffee clutches and typed things in that just basically say, thank you, Marysville, for this program and our tough love approach that really forced me to get into treatment and get this taken care of. People that otherwise would still be out there, would maybe be dead or who knows where, are now reunited with their families, working and productive members of society. The reason this program is so successful is one, primarily the great work of the embedded social worker team, but it's also the philosophy that we don't allow you to just continue to live that lifestyle in Marysville. So they'll say, hey, look, we've got something we can charge you with right here, trespassing or whatever. We're offering you a better choice, but you can't say no to that and have no ramifications. So either you take the very generous offer of treatment and a second crack at life, or we will charge you for these crimes. You don't get to just continue to break into stores and cars and live out on private property or wherever you're living. And so that's why the program's successful. It just goes to show that following through on that tough love approach pays off. So 93 graduated from treatment, and housing secured, 192 people we've secured at least temporary housing for. That's another remarkable number from this team. 2,868 total encounters they've had, and they've had 472 total new clients. So really proud of this program, proud of the work done by our police department in here, and particularly our embedded social worker program. It's a real team effort, and they are doing phenomenal. So in 2021, we will be looking at new options to expand this. Those stats should tell you that with one social worker and one officer, they're really running hard, and we don't want people to fall through the cracks. And so we're going to be looking at ways to expand this program. There's some things we can do to bring some more money back in-house on this and reinvest it in just Marysville's solutions. Chief Scarpin is also working on a mental health grant partnership with Arlington and Lake Stevens, where we can add a couple of shared mental health professionals to help us in these areas. And so look forward to 2021 working with these folks and announcing to the community some new and expanded ways we can continue to make this program cutting edge and successful. So Volunteer Patrol, our MVP team, these are amazing people that volunteer to work with our police department. COVID restrictions impacted this to some degree in 2020, like it did pretty much everything else. Even so, Marysville Volunteer Patrol contributed 3,603 volunteer hours in 2020, which is really remarkable. It tells you how dedicated these folks are. They patrol businesses, parks, schools. They provide vacation house checks for the people that are out of town. They also help facilitate our growing Neighborhood Watch program, which now has 52 active groups involved in that. This is an eager group. They want to get back to normal like we all do, and so we look forward in 2021 to hopefully utilizing their services even more. Community involvement. You know, we talk a lot about volunteerism here in Marysville. We're so proud, and I'm so proud of the volunteer spirit in our community, which shows through every single year, whether it's the food bank or the Boys and Girls Club or wherever it might be. There's a whole host of areas that people volunteer. One that I particularly like is the Adopt a Street program to help keep our streets clean from litter. And so we also like to practice what we preach here at the City of Marysville and contribute and give back to the community. And so a few of the ways that were done by city employees were an online yard sale that raised $4,000 to the Food for Thought program at the Marysville Food Bank. That was our police records unit. Really an amazing job that they did there. Marysville Police also handed out 400 trick-or-treat bags at a drive-through trick-or-treat during COVID this last October. They adopted a family for Christmas. All the funds raised by the records staff were put towards that family. There were no city dollars involved in these things. These are fundraisers that they ran. There was a coat drive. Donations of new coats and cash resulted in 350 new coats for our toy store from our police department, plus several hats, gloves, scarves, and other accessories that really helped out. And so really proud of the police department and all that they did to give back to our community. So with public safety, I want to move on to the fire district, which is actually the regional fire authority. So the fire district is not a direct department of the city. It's a separate regional fire authority with a separate governing board and then the chief, Martin McFalls, who they employ there to lead the district on a day-to-day basis. But it is a critical part of the function of public safety in our community. So I always like to include the key points and highlights from them in the state of the city as well. Chief McFalls likes to say they're looking back while they're moving forward. I think that's a great way to put it. And the Marysville Fire District formed partnerships really in the face of COVID, regional partnerships and others to obtain vital personal protective equipment that was really critical to our emergency personnel continuing to function in a safe manner throughout the pandemic in 2020. So those partnerships were critical. It also helped keep crews and our residents safer and allowed them to continue to deliver the exceptional service to our residents and businesses that they deserve and that they are proud to perform. These services included, outside of the normal day-to-day operations, also our annual September 11th ceremony. So I'm pleased that we did not call that off due to COVID. We just put on a virtual event that the community could observe. It actually probably allowed more people to participate because they could log on from their home or their place of work as opposed to necessarily having to come down there. Other highlights from our fire team: they completed their first ever community-driven strategic plan. It was their first year as a regional fire authority. The voters approved this in 2019, so it was a great time to put this strategic plan together. They received also a $470,000 regional federal grant for life-saving equipment. That was huge. They equipped all staff vehicles with AEDs, which was another big thing. They added a fire inspector and a training captain, added an urban search and rescue trailer with tools to respond to these kind of emergencies. And so that was a big thing as well for our fire team. So really proud, as we are of our police officers, of these folks. So moving on to what will happen in 2021, some of the things anyway that will happen in 2021 with Marysville Fire is they're looking to add 2 medical service officers. That would give them a total of 4. That's 1 on each shift, and these MSOs are certified paramedics who they deliver advanced emergency medical care, and also they will work to ensure quality assurance, training, and record keeping for our 120 EMTs and paramedics. So this will round out that team by adding 2 of them, and it's a great thing for our regional fire authority. They also will be ordering a new ladder truck, an EMS unit, an EMS command unit, and a training vehicle. They'll be conducting a community risk assessment and standard of cover, which will be important in continuing to proactively keep our community safe. Great work by them, great plans ahead for 2021. And kind of the third piece of the public safety area is the municipal court and city prosecutor. Again, as with everything else, municipal court was affected by COVID and they had to close most functions due to COVID back in March. The judges and staff, though, quickly pivoted to new models, which was really great to see. This photo shows a court hearing taking place remotely. From April to September, all hearings took place online. It allowed them to continue to operate, though, and get the business of the court done. In September, the courthouse reopened with real limited business hours and limited building access. Most hearings today are still virtual. The court did develop and test a plan also to resume jury trials within COVID guidelines. But when the COVID case rate shot up here recently, they were unable to conduct those jury trials. Some 2020 stats include 9,139 citations that were filed with our court. 2/3 of those came from Marysville Police. As you may know, we contract out with some other agencies, but Marysville Police has accounted for most of those. 9 domestic violence orders were issued, 13 harassment orders were issued, 4 stalking or sexual assault orders were issued, 8 extreme risk protection orders, 342 search warrants, 217 of those were from Marysville PD, and 862 infraction hearings conducted electronically. And we appreciate the work done by our courts. In the prosecutor's office, they are the ones that prosecute these crimes, obviously, that our police department brings forward. Some of the things they did to get more efficient went towards electronic files and workflows here throughout 2020. We also have a victim witness coordinator, which is really important. It helps work with our victims, help them out to get through things, whether it's domestic violence or other issues. And that person worked with over 300 victims here in our community to help them through it, very difficult times. So moving on from public safety to another really critical area of a growing and vibrant community, and that's the infrastructure of the community and some of the highlights there. We'll start with areas we're growing business-wise. Here's some new businesses that have joined our community in 2020, and then a few others that are coming in 2021. We did continue to attract businesses, both large and small, last year. Sadly, the economic impacts of both the airline industry and of the COVID pandemic response are playing out in Marysville just as they are throughout the region and country. So there was some limits to the growth that we had this year in our businesses that were relocating here or those that were starting here. But we are grateful for so many businesses that choose to locate here in a vibrant part of our community. As we move into 2021, I do want to let you know we will be working on a downtown master plan update. You know, our downtown is seeing some really nice revitalization and cleaning up here over the last several years. We'll be expanding the size of this downtown master plan area, addressing waterfront redevelopment now that a lot of the cleanup has been done on the waterfront. We can take a look at maybe what happens over the next 5 years or so and even beyond that. Looking at transit, pedestrian, and bicycle improvements, and reviewing permitting housing types and location and things of that nature. So those things will be happening on a planning level here in 2021. Looking back on 2020, we were really excited to finally open the First Street bypass. Hopefully you've had a chance to drive that. It was completed on time and within budget. This is a 1/4-mile new roadway that extends First Street and connects Alder to 47th Avenue. Construction cost was $13 million. The total project cost $22 million. This supports the new traffic flows that'll come with the completion of the new interchange off of I-5 onto Highway 529. That design build project begins in 2022 and is expected to be completed in 2023. This is state funded almost entirely, that new interchange. And the First Street bypass was critical to that, so that when that traffic flow begins to come off I-5 towards the end of 2023, everything doesn't merge at 4th and State with exit 199 still available. So we created a way to get people straight up into the ever-growing Sunnyside and Eastside Foothill neighborhoods. Plus we have a lot of through traffic that goes on up towards Granite Falls and Arlington, Lake Stevens, or other cities. So critical infrastructure improvements that will help for many, many years to come. And we're excited about this new interchange too. It obviously will, in addition to helping all the traffic flow, will create a way in and out of the city around the trains. State Avenue, you're probably witnessing even right now, State Avenue 100 to 104th was begun in 2020, and we're pleased with this. The last segment of State Avenue that is not 5 lanes is that 100 to 116th. And so This is the last portion to be improved. The most difficult and expensive section of that is the new bridge where the roadway crosses Quilceda Creek. In 2018, the city was awarded, thankfully, a $6.2 million state grant to help fund this project. And this, again, as I pause for a moment, just highlights we get millions and millions and millions of grant dollars through hard work of our employees and all of us lobbying for these grants that help fund these local infrastructure projects and bring some of this money back from Washington, D.C. and Olympia into your community. And this is tax dollars that you pay. We just work to get as much of it back and invested in our community as possible. So last year we made significant construction improvements in that phase from 100 and 104th. That's ongoing. It's about halfway complete now, including the construction of the new bridge and the retaining walls, et cetera, and the private utilities, which will be affected with that. And so we look to begin completion of that here and probably looking at the end of this year, the beginning of 2022, before the project will be complete. We're excited about the safety improvements, the enhanced environmental protection that it offers, and it also expands the roadway. And we did receive already a $4 million grant to advance the construction on 104th to 116th. So that's the second phase of this project. And so we intend to complete final design of that and begin some property acquisition, and construction will be following in 2022. Another important piece is not just building new roadways like the First Street bypass and the new interchange at 529 and this project I just previously talked about. We want to preserve what we have. That's critical. And so we have an ongoing pavement preservation program. This is funded by your voter-approved Transportation Benefit District, which was voted in several years ago. We dedicate a good chunk of this money towards overlays and pavement repair, sidewalk ramp replacement to meet ADA standards, utility adjustments, channelization, and much more. So as you can see here, there's a project list that was completed in 2020, and then some of the projects planned for 2021. That $2.5 million figure is the combined cost for 2020 and 2021 projects. At 83rd and Soper, we had a project that was located actually in Lake Stevens, but was completed by Marysville to address the traffic impacts from development within our community. So we worked this out with Lake Stevens. Most of the work was finished in May and June, and an intersection closure that we had there that was approved by both cities did save us about $50,000. So we're pleased with trying to find efficiencies like that. It presented a safer work environment also for the contractor and the flagging crews, and it cut about 4 weeks' time from the original schedule. So this was done ahead of time and on budget. The project cost was about $635,000, and it was completed, and hopefully now provides a better way to function in and out of that intersection for everybody, as well as some safety improvements. So there's other traffic safety improvements coming here this year. Some of the highlights for 2021, the State Avenue Safety Improvement Project program that we have are fully funded by, a lot of times, by federal highway safety improvement grants. And so we're really pleased to continue to bring that kind of money in, as I mentioned earlier. In this year, we will replace an antiquated traffic signal at the intersection of 80th Street Northeast and State Avenue. I know that people that travel that a lot are excited about that. It'll add ADA ramps and pedestrian push buttons as well. Other signals that need improvements, both timing and other things, and that will happen in 2020, are at the intersections of 3rd, 4th, 6th, 8th, and 76th Streets. Also slated for construction this year and fully funded by state safety improvement programs: surface treatment to improve traction on a curve near 140th Street and Smoky Point Boulevard, a location known for high speeds and accidents; 2 signal improvements on SR 528. These are at the intersections of 60th Drive Northeast, where one of them will be, and the other at the 67th Avenue Northeast. Speed radar signs on 64th Street Northeast, west of 65th Drive Northeast. New pedestrian crossings will be put in at 100th Street Northeast and 59th Drive Northeast, with flashing beacons and ADA ramp improvements there as well. There's some other things coming in 2021 that I want to highlight, and these are the low-impact development facilities. What this is a bioretention cells and permeable pavers along Cedar Avenue. We'll be putting in from 1st to 4th Street, and along 2nd Street from Columbia Avenue to 47th. These additional roadway improvements are really similar to the previously constructed ones that we had at 3rd and at 1st Street, the ones that are shown in the graphic here. The goal is to improve water quality for the water that flows into the EB Slough, treating the storm water and making it cleaner, and also creating a more aesthetically pleasing roadway and even one that's more conducive to the type of travel and environment that the community wants in those areas. So the estimated project cost for these is $3.7 million. Again, grants from the Department of Ecology at the state are going to pay for about 2/3 of that. So we expect to build the Cedar Avenue improvements this spring and summer, and 2nd Street probably in 2022. We have some stormwater treatment projects that I wanted to highlight. These improve the water quality into EB Slough by installing a lift station that will convey stormwater runoff to media filter basins at the Geddes Marina property. And that's critical. That water was really contaminated over the years with the type of industry that was down there. This facility will remove solids, oil, copper, zinc, phosphorus, and other things from the stormwater before they discharge into EB. Scheduled to start in 2021 and will be completed in 2022. Project funding again here was 75% funded through a state ecology grant and 25% from the city of Marysville. You know, we've also submitted a proposal for additional grant funds to increase the capacity of the facility to treat over 460 acres, the full entire downtown area basin. So that's exciting as well. What about our wastewater treatment plant? Wanted to give you a few updates there. These aren't necessarily glamorous things, but these are kind of the nuts and bolts of government and making sure that the things you depend on every single day continue to function at a high level. So we did have the need for some headworks improvements this year, about $3.9 million worth. That began in the spring of 2019 and was completed at the end of December of 2020. And specifically, some of the things that happened were replacing deteriorated massive screw pumps that deliver sewer water into the treatment plant. We updated the screens to help keep inorganic matter out of the lagoons, and also importantly installed a brand new odor control system. In addition to that, we also did our biosolids removal. This happens periodically. I actually was out there a few times to view this. This is not a cheap thing to do, but it's necessary to keep your wastewater treatment plant functioning. It was a $9.9 million project completed in September of this past year, 2020. And amazingly, we removed 17.7 dry tons of biosolids from the wastewater treatment plant lagoons to improve their function and their storage capacity. These biosolids were dredged, they were screened and dewatered at the south end of the lagoons. We do this every few years as needed. Again, it's a necessary part of having a wastewater treatment plant. Just kind of wanted to walk you through a few of the nuts and bolts of that. Moving from that into some of the more quality of life issues. We like to talk about live, work, and play in Marysville. These are things that we do to try and enhance the quality of life for our residents and for those who visit. Of course, COVID threw a wrench in a lot of our really popular activities that we were disappointed not to be able to put on this year. Even so, though, city staff came up with some real creative ways to reimagine some of the activities that we do and to create new ways to engage with the public, even during the pandemic year. We continued also, importantly, hopefully you've noticed, to make good progress on improving and expanding our parks and trails in the city, even throughout 2020. One of the great new featured attractions is Cedar Field. If you're like me and had kids that played Little League Baseball, or maybe you coached Little League Baseball in the past, you had the pleasure of doing it at Cedar Field, which is just an icon in our community. So we vastly improved this. This was a long time coming. It was a goal of mine, I know, for a long time, and I know the Little League community and the local sports community really has wanted this for a long time. This project included construction of a synthetic baseball field, playing surface, the installation of LED lighting. It's a really beautiful renovation. If you haven't had a chance to drive by, please do so and check it out. It'll greatly extend the playing season for our youth when you have turf to play on instead of a muddy, wet field. You can play well into the rainy season. The new lighting system will cut energy consumption by up to 80%. And with the virtual elimination also too of that glare and the wasteful light that spills into surrounding areas with some of the older lights. It was jointly funded by the State Recreation and Conservation Office, Snohomish County Government, Marysville Little League, and the City of Marysville all pitched in. Final amount was $887,000. New construction was completed back in June, and unfortunately nobody's gotten to play on it yet. We're really excited to see Little League games start there just as soon as possible and get those Cedar burgers cooked up and get everything going again. Olympic View Park is another really exciting addition to our community that will come here in 2021. This is a new park in the Sunnyside area that features plazas overlooking the Quileute Estuary, the Ebi Slough, and the Olympic Peninsula mountain range. It will include a restroom, a picnic shelter, ADA accessible trail that will connect the park to the existing Ebi waterfront park, in-ground slide, a rock scramble, a play area, and some really nice landscaping, wildflower meadows. Interpretive signage will be put there, and we'll also have some off-street parking for folks. So this is a really neat addition to our park inventory. The work is going on right now, and we're expecting to complete it mid to late February. The total project cost was $847,000. Importantly, we got a state grant that covered $500,000 of that $847,000. So once again, leveraging your tax dollars to get money in from the state to help complete this. Well, I don't know how many people out there use the Bayview Trail. I use it an awful lot. I live close to it, so I'm out on it walking and jogging really almost daily, or at least several times a week. But one thing I'm really excited about, and I've had so many people ask about this, is the possibility of connecting that to the Centennial Trail. So we've been working on that for a few years, and this is the year that it'll happen. This 1.5 mile addition to the existing Bayview Trail will provide a vital link for pedestrians and bike riders and joggers and everybody to the fastest growing area in Marysville. So when complete, it'll connect the Bayview Trail to the Centennial Trail. Right now, to get to Centennial, you have to cross Highway 9. So this new trail extension will be a 12-foot wide extension where possible. It'll have uniform asphalt surface for walking and jogging and biking and everything else. And so there will be a way for you to get from Marysville's Bayview Trail to Centennial, connecting all those recreational opportunities. We've been involved in this design and kind of working on this for about 2.5 years. There was a lot of right-of-way acquisition, a lot of permitting. Federal, state, and county permits were required. It was a complicated project. So I want to thank Marysville School District, WashDOT, Snohomish County, and also a private landowner who granted the city a trail lease in order to build the trail. Everybody had a hand in this, and we expect to start the construction here as we move into spring and complete it hopefully by the fall of 2021. And I want to thank another state grant that we got. I want to thank the state for about $1.25 million in state funds that'll help to fund this program. So what about virtual programs? As we went through 2020, our Parks, Culture, and Recreation Department really adapted by providing many virtual activities. Some of these were online exercises, games, and activities for families and children to do at home. One of the most visible and successful was really our 4th of July fireworks show. We were one of the few that took place in Western Washington. Most of those were canceled. We of course did it in a safe manner where we discouraged crowds from gathering, but we had areas where people could drive in and watch that. And we also made it in a spot where it was really visible to a large number of Marysville residents to view either from their home or an area near their home. And then also an opportunity to view virtually. So it was an exciting thing. We were happy to keep that fireworks show on even during 2020. At the holiday season, we tried to bring some Christmas cheer to folks by holding our very popular Christmas lights contest and a self-guided tour map. I was also pleased to ring in the Christmas season by celebrating the lighting of the water tower and the Christmas tree on 4th Street there virtually, and also got a nice visit from Santa Claus that hopefully you enjoyed if you were able to watch that. So we tried to bring some of that in and incorporate it in, even though we weren't able to do all of the activities we usually do around that time. Next up is a virtual wedding show that will kick off 2021. That's coming up this Saturday, the 23rd of January, I believe. A real bright spot for the city in regards to recreation here in 2020 was Cedar Crest Golf Course. A real success story. Amazing numbers experienced at this city-owned golf course. Even after a 40-day closure through the state restrictions, total revenue in 2020 exceeded the record-setting year of 2019 by 22%. We finished 43% ahead of the 2018 numbers and 35% ahead of what was budgeted to bring in here for 2020. So we're really grateful for our partnership with Premier Golf, who's just done a fantastic job. And our golf pro, Shane Day, does an amazing job. I can't tell you how hard they worked and how difficult it was for them to pull this off in navigating the challenges of all the state regulations and providing an excellent and safe recreational opportunity for people to get out and play golf, even in a tough year like 2020. So as we start to wrap up, I wanted to touch on some of the other work through the administration here. Some of this might be somewhat less visible, but I want to start by talking a little more, as I promised earlier, about COVID and some specific responses to COVID. I want to take a little bit of time to really speak to this and discuss the City of Marysville response that we had to this pandemic that's changed and really affected all of our lives throughout 2020 and now into 2021. We moved quickly with internal decisions in early to mid-March of 2020 to keep our workforce safe while also ensuring that we provided all of the essential services of your local government. There was not a workday that COVID did not impact something that we do. And I know it was the same for all of you as well. You experienced the same thing. I want you all to know that we have worked hard to adapt and to continue to provide a high level of government services to all our residents and businesses, despite the complications of this past year. The decisions regarding these COVID restrictions on businesses and individuals were made primarily at the state and federal level, as you probably know. These decisions override any local jurisdiction. We set out, though, from the beginning, and we continue to this day to do all we can as your local city government to both keep our community safe while also helping those individuals and businesses who have suffered so greatly with economic losses through the most difficult of times. I also want you to know that I have personally advocated on your behalf and will continue to on a weekly basis with the Snohomish Health District officials, a multitude of other officials, including state and federal. I've helped to lead efforts by elected leaders throughout Snohomish County to advocate for the needs that are specific to our communities here. Additionally, I've had the opportunity to speak through a variety of local and regional media outlets to make our case for community needs. My focus in these and in many other efforts has always been on keeping our community safe while also advocating for our residents and businesses who have suffered so much economically due to the state-enforced COVID shutdowns and restrictions. I am particularly concerned, I will say, and have advocated for our local small businesses and their employees. I have yet to see data that shows that our local small business community has inordinately contributed to the various spikes in cases that have occurred at different times throughout this pandemic, yet they are absolutely bearing the brunt of the economic burden of these shutdowns. There's no question about that. I trust and have personally witnessed how our local business owners have taken great care when allowed to be open to provide for the safety of both their employees and their customers. Therefore, I'll continue to push the governor's office and state officials to allow our small businesses to safely reopen while they still may have time to salvage their businesses and salvage the livelihoods and the jobs of those that they employ. I also want you to know that your city council has been steadfast in this support as well, utilizing the various avenues available to them individually and as a governing body. They have also responded by approving a host of measures to aid our community through this difficult period, some of which we'll touch on here in just a moment as I transition to sharing some of the nuts and bolts programs that we as a city put in place to help our community through COVID-19. In 2020, the City Council approved and our Finance Department administered $1.79 million in business relief grants for local Marysville businesses, $81,901 in residential housing relief grants, and $26,100 in utility assistance grants. These programs were to help businesses and individuals and families that had been negatively impacted through the COVID shutdowns. In addition, our Community Development Department was able to administer a lot of money through community development block grant funds that came to our city. Because of the size of our city, these came directly to us. So they administered $168,000 for low-income household rent and utility assistance, and then a special program for what's called micro businesses. Those are really small businesses. They administered $242,000 for 19 of these small businesses in our community. These are businesses with 5 or fewer employees. So the other one, the $1.79 million, addressed a lot of a different level of our small business community, but this one kind of got at the micro businesses. In total, if you add all that together, we were able to put $2.24 million in these grant funds out into the community to try and help us through this COVID shutdown. Of course, we all know that the true recovery won't happen until things open up, but we were trying to get people through this time when they were not able to be open or were very limited in the type of opening and revenue they could bring in. Emergency management is another area where we tried to help keep the community safe through the COVID pandemic. Our emergency management team did a remarkable job distributing over 70,000 face masks throughout the city. They delivered more than 500 Getting to Safe business kits. This was a partnership with the Marysville-Tulalip Chamber of Commerce designed to give kits out to small businesses to give them the tools they needed to safely reopen. We also assisted the food bank with distribution over several weeks as they were inundated with new clients throughout this pandemic. Our communications team did a remarkable job with regular website updates, social media, and e-newsletter updates about city operations and changes related to the COVID response, available resources for residents and businesses. We ran our Marysville Loves Local small business promotion to try and get people to support the small business community through this time. It also included a website map, particularly during the early to mid part of this, where restaurants were adjusting and doing takeout and delivery options. We had an interactive map where you could find out where those folks were. I tried to personally also update the community regularly through my social media pages, and I think communications are so critical in a crisis, even in areas where we don't control things. We were able to update you on different directives that were coming down, how the city was responding, and how we might be able to help. So hopefully those were helpful to you as a community. I wanted to talk a little bit about our growth management task force as we move kind of out of COVID and back into some of the business things. This growth management task force was designed to take a look at kind of our ever-growing and expanding community, particularly as we approach the 2024 comp plan amendment that is required of the city through the Growth Management Act. So I formed this task force. It included city council members, planning commission members, city staff, and 5 members just chosen randomly from the community of different walks of life. They reviewed our existing growth planning framework, our downtown master plan, and they also reviewed the development impact fees for transportation, for parks and other things, and just gave us some really needed and solid input as we begin this plan update that I discussed. So appreciate those folks for working with us. The Cascade Industrial Center is another important thing in our community. This is the area out north, our jobs base. We had over 650,000 square feet of building permits issued there as this thing's starting to really take off now. The North Point Master Plan, which is 9 buildings and over 4 million square feet, started and we have 1 building in permit review. This will be an area where we can employ a lot of industrial and manufacturing family wage jobs. Other preliminary projects were included more than 300,000 square feet of industrial buildings that you'll hear more about as we continue to move forward. We're working with our marketing team. We have an agreement that was put together with the Port of Everett and the cities of Arlington and Marysville. Also, Economic Alliance Snohomish County is working with us very well. And with these partners, we're targeting great marketing efforts to attract specific desirable industrial and manufacturing businesses that we want to bring here that'll, again, add family wage jobs close to home for our residents. We're also asking lawmakers, this is one of Council and I's top priorities here for 2021, is that they extend the property tax exemption that helps bring some of these family wage jobs here and increase the wage rate for employers that'll be eligible for that, so we make sure that they're the type of jobs that can support families in our community. Our Diversity Advisory Committee, an update on that. Members of this have kind of set about to tackle 4 key areas in addition to other things in 2021. One is community building and inclusion. The focus here is on the promotion of a citywide calendar tied to events supported by this Diversity Advisory Committee. Public safety. They've created a list of questions to ask both the police and fire chiefs to discuss how the city trains and their vision for accountability. Economic growth and prosperity. They want to help support and start engaging local businesses and to figure out how the city can better support new business and help keep current businesses going and remaining resilient. And city practices create a shared commitment to equity with Tulalip tribes, with the Marysville School District and the city. Well, we have great partnership between these 3 entities. We really want to highlight that and leverage that and do trainings and things together to really show the community how committed we are in that area. So thank you to the great work of the Diversity Advisory Committee. Quick update on our new public safety building and civic center. It's been under construction for a full year now. You're probably watching that go up. I know it's fun to drive by. I enjoy driving by that and seeing the progress. We're still expecting to stay on track for completion in the first quarter of 2022, and looking forward to that. Currently, some of the work you've seen is, and the work that's underway is the slab completion as weather permits. Structural steel erection is nearing completion. The steel framing of the exterior walls. The weather barrier work is continuing on the jail portion, where the roofing is 95% complete now. Inside the jail, crews are finishing up cell wall construction, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. Interior work in both the police department section is taking place later this month as well. As we move early into the spring, the site work will begin kind of along Delta Avenue there, as they'll start to construct the plaza area and the frontage improvements. And by fall, you should have a visually solid sense of kind of the new skyline and what it'll look like, and then we'll get to open it up in 2022. I appreciate the opportunity. I know typically we would hold this down at the Opera House and we'd all be gathering in person. But in some ways, kind of like I've gone from in-person coffee clashes to virtual ones, they've actually expanded our audience. A lot more people are attending the virtual ones because it's just more convenient and it's easier. Hopefully more people will get to watch this too as we do a virtual State of the City. I do look forward to the time when we can reconvene in person and share that time together. Hopefully that's not too far down the road. I do appreciate you taking the time to view this State of the City and to listen, and I look forward now to the question and answer portion where, just like we do at the live ones, take some of your questions here virtually and look forward to answering those. As always, if you need to get a hold of me for any reason, don't hesitate to reach out via email or phone call, and happy to answer questions at any time as well. So thank you, everybody. It's been a difficult 2020. I'm so proud of our community. It's proven its resiliency over the years and did again in 2020. We have a wonderful community, and it's my pleasure and a true honor to serve as your mayor. And thank you, and look forward to the Q&A.